Hello, happy live, happy almost first of the month. I hope you guys can tune in on Friday when I go and surprise somebody with a check for $2,500 to pay their mortgage or their rent. So super excited. It's Wednesday, obviously, so 2 more days until that. So hopefully you guys can tune in. I hope all's well. You guys have been enjoying this glorious sunshine. Last week when I did this, behind me was super not nice, cloudy, miserable, dreary. So it's a lovely day today. Hopefully I can get out after this and hope you guys are out as well. So I'm going to do the normal, which is answer your guys' questions that have come in throughout the week. I'm going to do some real estate updates as well as go over some happy news. Hi, Scotty. Hope all's well. So the first question, now again, you can write in here questions or I'll just answer ones that came in throughout the week if you're too shy to ask them in here. So the first question comes from Jackson and Barry. So Jackson and Barry says, my wife and I just moved from North Bay and we heard how high the rent was, but secured somewhere virtually. Now after being here, we realize we're not in the greatest neighborhood. Is there any secrets to getting into a good rental? Also, we have dogs. Can they legally not rent to us because of our pups? Thank you, Jackson, for asking. Unfortunately, yeah, Barry does have really high rent. We've teetered between the most high, like the highest, even higher than Toronto and Vancouver, to third highest and sixth highest in about the last 15 years. So we seem to teeter in the top 6 in Canada. So unfortunately, we do have high rent. There's nowhere really to find like secret deals. Obviously, they're on realtor.ca, they're on Kijiji, they're on Marketplace, but there's no secret deals. Legally, your landlord or landlord-to-be can't say, hey, I'm not renting to you because of your dog. However, they could pretend, they didn't like your credit score or somebody else they like better, or they had like a more desirable closing date or whatever, when in reality it could be because of your dogs. So if you're concerned of it, to be honest, you could lie about it, because in reality, the only way they can get you out once you're in, if you have dogs, is if they fear for their life or if they see damage to the property. So you could just lie. Anyways, welcome to Barry and thank you for asking. So the first thing I was going to talk about was a homeless man. So there was a homeless man just outside, not outside, just in Kingston. And basically a lady was doing her gardening and the fellow was going by like on his scooter and his tire broke, or not broke, flat tire. So she said, do you want me to watch your stuff while you go like get something to repair it? So he said, okay. And then by the time he had come back, she had spoken with her husband and they invited him for dinner. So they heard his story, and he used to own a home in Kingston and a gas station, which went under in 2010. And then by 2016, he was homeless. And they went like their own ways that night. He didn't stay over or anything like that, but she used to always see him, in the community and so forth. And she would give him like a tent sometimes or blankets sometimes. And then eventually she invited him to put his tent in her backyard. And she let him use her bathroom and her laundry facilities, etc. And then she was posting some things and she made like a GoFundMe for a tiny home. And so it was $18,000 for this little kind of mobile home. And they just got enough funds to do that last week. So they've ordered his little tiny home. And even though, she's happy that he won't be in a tent in the winter, because obviously that would not make any sense, she said their family is very sad because they've kind of grown as him to be like their family. So I just thought it was cute, because obviously most people just pass by homeless, etc. But this lady decided not to. And it was close by in Kingston. So the next question comes from Veronica in Stroud. So Veronica said, my friend sold her home recently after only living in it for 7 months and didn't pay capital gains. I thought you have to live in it for a year to avoid capital gains. Thank you, Veronica, for asking. So there's no rule. I know everybody thinks it's a year. There's actually nothing set in stone. So you could live there 3 years and still have to pay capital gains, or you could live there only 2 months and not pay capital gains. Basically, if they think that you're doing it for the purpose of gain. So if you're doing it all the time, then obviously they know you're doing it for the purpose of gain. So even if you live there 13 months, they don't care that it's over a year, you could still pay capital gains. But if you lived in one home for 8 years and then the next home for only 2 months, and then circumstances change and you had to move, then there's a very good chance you wouldn't have to pay capital gains. So it's not actually a year like everybody thinks. It's actually if it was for the purpose of gain. So you were flipping it, etc. So say you're a contractor or you're a realtor or you're in a profession that is kind of more known for flipping things, then they're more likely going to charge you capital gains, okay? But thank you for asking. So next thing is chat checkouts. So basically in the Netherlands, they have over 1.3 million people that are over the age of 75. So the government before COVID said they wanted to do this program, and it was called One Against Loneliness. And they encouraged businesses to like think of something that they could do to help the elderly. So this one grocery store chain said, okay, instead of having like the checkouts where you just do it all your own, they are going to have regular checkouts, but the people like talk to you for a long time. So they ask like how your kids are, or how the weather is, or how your plants are, or what you've got up to the past week or whatever. Like they talk to you for a really long time. And it ended up being so successful. Again, this started fall 2018, so before COVID. And now they actually have it at more than 200 of their stores, and people like line up to get into the chat checkouts as opposed to like regular scan yourself checkouts. So I just thought that was cute, and they're helping, the elderly, and people that are not elderly are allowed to go on the lines as well. But it was originally meant for the elderly, so I just thought that was cute. The next question comes from Jamie in Innisfil. So we'll do one more question, one more thing, then we'll do real estate, okay? So Jamie in Innisfil, where am I here? Jamie in Innisfil said, do you think there'll be a correction in the market? I'd hate to sell my home for $800 this year if I could get $900 next year, but would hate to not sell this year and only get $600 next year. What should I do? Thank you, Jamie, for asking. So economists are basically saying that it can't continue to go up the way that it has. So for example, last year, if your home's really truly worth $800 and last year it was worth $600 or $650, it's not going to go up that same amount next year, but it's still going to have a steady rise. Okay. So it's still going to continue to go up. It's not going to flatline. It's not going to go down just because of our lack of inventory. So it's still going to go up. So if, for example, you sold this year for $800, but you bought somewhere else, then obviously that home is also going to have a steady increase. But if you sold this year and then just rented thinking the market's going to correct, it's not going to correct. And if you wanted to wait till next year and you think it's going to be, and it does go down, it's not going to. So that is not a scenario. So that's what I'm saying. If you rented thinking that it's going to go down, you can buy back your same home or a similar home for cheaper. Is not going to happen. Hopefully that answers your question, but yeah, it's not going to go down. So if you want to sell, you're welcome to sell this year or next year. I just wouldn't sell and rent because then it's much harder to get back into the market next year when the prices are higher. But thank you for asking. And then there's one more thing again before real estate. So basically there was this man, and he was in Colorado, family man, father of 4. He worked at like a, not Mincom, what's it called? Telecom company. And he was watching the news and he saw about all of the forest fires in California. And he looked at his daughter who was 6 and he said, this was before COVID. He said, what do you think about, giving a family an RV for Christmas? And she said that she thought that Santa would like that. So because they saw on TV, one man said that all he had, when he left his home was his RV, and he was happy to have his RV for Christmas. So he started to save and fundraise and so forth for money to buy an RV for a family. And then as he did this a few times, he was posting things online and so forth. And then people started to say, hey, we want to give our RV, or we want to give some money to go towards this RV thing or what have you. So he started to, have like a company basically out of it. And now he's given 95 RVs to people in California that have been out of their home due to fires. And he has over 100 people on his waiting list. And basically he drives the 40 hours every weekend. So he'll take a trailer there and then go back because he still works his regular job. So I just thought that was, great. Instead of one person, watching the news and turning off the news and going about their life, he decided to do something about it. So I liked that. So now I'm going to do real estate, okay? So if you guys have any questions, feel free to write. If not, I will not ramble. Okay, so what did CMHC release yesterday? So CMHC is a Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, which is one of 3 main insurers if you're going to put less than 20% down on your home. So they insure the mortgage, so in case you don't pay it, then the bank is not out of pocket and left holding the house. So CMHC is like your insurance. So what did they say yesterday? Basically a bunch of nothing. So what they said is that we're in a really vulnerable market right now. Before we were in a medium volatile market, and now we're in a high volatile market, they think that it's going to crash. But they also said last year that it was going to crash, and it skyrocketed. So most people are not paying any attention to them, as well as all the economists have been saying with the lack of inventory and the low interest rates and multiple other things like people coming back to Canada to do, schooling and borders opening and so forth, that's not going to change. And just the amount of homes that they can build quick enough is not going to equate, and the snowball effect is still continuing on for the lack of inventory. So basically, they didn't say much that anybody believed. So the fall market is upon us. So obviously the election is over. So a lot of people are wondering, like, when is the open bidding going to start? So currently it's blind bidding. So it means if you offer on a property, the home is listed for 600, you might offer 600, somebody else might offer 625, somebody might offer 7, somebody might offer 8. That person offering 8 obviously didn't need to offer that high because they were 100,000 over the next one. However, they didn't know that. So Trudeau wanted to say about an open bidding process, which they have in Australia. I'm sure other places too, but I just mentioned Australia because I've done statistics there in the past and told you guys. So Australia has that. So people have said, like, when's that going to go into play? And I'll talk about all of that later, but most likely it's not. So right now, Toronto has a low inventory, so it's the lowest it's ever been in 25 years. So when you combine that, like I said, with the low interest, and basically when you go to the city and you're like, hey, I need to rezone, I need to do this, I need to do that, and jump through all these permits and planning and so forth, then that's what costs so much money and takes so much time. And then a lot of people are just building elsewhere, to be honest. So it's just spurring or continuing the fact that we have no inventory. So the freehold, everything that's going on, been going on crazy, and freeholds has also jumped into condos because some people that are like, hey, I can afford a $500,000 home, and now they realize they can't really get anything for $500,000, has then jumped into the condo world, and they're just trying to get their foot in the door for any kind of real estate, ownership. So the amount of people getting into condos has gone up as opposed to before. And a lot of people obviously like make promises with voting and so forth. They just want to get people's votes. So people are saying like, hey, everything that the Liberals said is really unrealistic. So they're just kind of waiting to see what they actually do of what they said. So for example, they had the Home Buyers Bill of Rights, which they're saying is fairly unrealistic that will ever come in. I could speak properly because it is a federal policy, but yet Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, etc., BC, they're all governed separately by the province or the territory, so they don't think that will ever happen. Also, the blind bidding, like I mentioned before, they think it'll take like years and years to get like processes of how much, how will we do it, how will this, how will that, and obviously they only have 4 years, so they also think that was just a thing to get people's votes, so they don't think that will ever happen. The no foreign buyers will happen because it's easy, they just sign a thing and basically no foreign buyers. The problem with that is that our market has skyrocketed and prices have skyrocketed in the past year and a half, and we didn't have foreign buyers. So keeping the foreign buyers out is not helping our lack of inventory and therefore not helping our prices stay down and helping first-time buyers get in. So that is not going to really do anything. Again, it was just a thing for votes. So what else? They also promised to increase the mortgage rate. So basically right now, if you buy over $1 million, it could be $1.1 million, $1.3 million, $1.5 million. Even if it's your primary residence, you have to put more than 20% down because it's not an insured mortgage. So it's not like that, what I said before, CMHC. And they said that we'll raise it from $1 million to 1.25. The problem with that is it just means then more people can afford a home, which is great. However, then there's more people competing and we still don't have the inventory, which is just going to drive up prices again. So that is not helping anything. Again, more people, can buy, but there's still no inventory. What else? Okay, so regardless of who you voted for, basically people were talking about, first-time buyers. They were talking about foreign ownership, and then some people were talking about like taxing the people that leave their homes empty and so forth, which is normally people that are foreign, like their vacation properties, etc. But nobody was really talking about the competition or the lack of inventory, which is our main problem. So the biggest single thing right now of wealth in Canada is people's real estate, right? So in the 80s, all the baby boomers and so forth were buying their properties for super cheap with really high interest rates, like 82, 86, etc. And now they're sitting on all these homes that are a fortune. However, they're like, okay, if we sell, where do we go? And like, okay, we sell high, but then we have to buy high. So then they're just not selling, which is another thing that is making our lack of inventory. We have many, many things making our lack of inventory, and that is one of them. So also they talked about taxing people's primary residence, and what that's going to do if it does go into place is just means people are going to move less, which again doesn't help our inventory, makes it worse, right? So if you tell people, hey, when you move, you thought you were going to have 400,000 in equity, now you're going to have 200,000 or whatever the case, then they're going to say, well, I'm not going to move, I'll just stay here, right? So there's already talks about that not going through, even though the election was not too long ago. They're already saying that that's not going to happen. Basically, obviously, they're just looking for votes. So basically in the voting, they say like, hey, we can either appeal to the people that already own homes, or we can appeal to the people that, are going to be first time buyers soon, but we can't really get everybody's vote. So we're going to, do something that doesn't get the first time buyers mad at us and doesn't get the already homeowners mad at us. So we're just going to pretend the market is crazy because of the foreign buyers. So we'll just say no foreign buyers can buy, which again is not going to really do anything. So last year, the same month as this year in the GTA, the average sales price was $893, and this month is over $1 million. And if you want a detached home in Toronto, you're going to have to spend around 1.7, which is crazy. And now the average condo in Toronto, less than 500 square feet, not even 600 square feet, 500 square feet, is just teetering around $600,000. So if you want to spend $600,000, you could get about this much size of my condo in Toronto. And Vancouver actually didn't go up as much this month from last year compared to Toronto. It only went up 14%. So only went up 14%. However, their average sales price is higher than Toronto's, which is 1.2. And the main problem is not like, okay, the foreign buyers have all these deep pockets and they're, outbidding the local people and so forth. It is the tight restrictions and again, zoning and rechanging land, and it's supposed to be commercial and we want residential, or it's supposed to be one family home and we want to put 20 on it, etc. That is the main problem in the infrastructure and so forth. So these people with these big pockets tend to go to other places where it's cheaper and faster to build, unfortunately, because they have to pay to service the land, they have to pay to build the roads and the infrastructure, etc. And it's just costing them too much. So in Texas, for example, it's less than half, not even a little bit less than half. It's a lot less. So let's just say it's $1 million here. It's probably $350,000 there, which is crazy. And that's compared to Ontario and BC. And basically they have a quicker growing population and their economy is growing better, but their rules and regulations for land use and change and so forth, construction is much less. So it's a lot easier to do things there. Saskatchewan, for example, is a third of Ontario, and they have fewer land use hoops to jump through, or limitations basically. And I know this sounds weird, but in BC they actually passed a thing that you have to have door handles instead of door knobs, and they spent all this money fighting to have door handles instead of doorknobs, which is crazy. But they have a lot less political rules and so forth in Saskatchewan. So that's why it's a third the price to build in Saskatchewan compared to BC and Ontario. And in Texas, it's far less than half to do things there. So that's why, we tend not to get developers and builders building here, because it's not the same return for their dollar. So in Toronto, for example, for every 1,000 people, there are 360 homes. And in the rest of Canada, there are 424 homes for every 1,000 people. So obviously neither is the greatest math. Obviously we don't have we have a lack of inventory, but Toronto has even worse, right? 360 for every 1,000. So to get more, affordable housing, faster, etc., the Conservatives said, okay, let's turn 15% of the federal buildings that are now not being used because of COVID and people working from home and change those into 1 million units. So that was something that they talked about. As something that's not as serious or whatever as politics. I'm just sidetracking. You guys, I'm sure, have all heard of Airbnb. There's a place called Airbnb, and a designer has made basically a Winnie the Pooh house in the woods to look like Winnie the Pooh's home between the trees and so forth, and you can rent it out, stay for a couple nights, etc. That's just my random, not as serious talk. So in Toronto in August, for example, there were 43% less listings. 43% is huge. So last year, the same month, there was over 18,000 listings. This year, there was only 10,000 and change. So, like I've said a million times, pace is just really not keeping up with demand. So it just, there's no inventory, but yet all this demand. So developers are saying that, Toronto wasn't designed properly. They're saying from the DVP all the way to Humber River, there should not be homes. Obviously, there's tons of homes in there. They're saying that because, Toronto wasn't meant to be like this mega metropolitan that it is. It was originally just like, the winter fair and slaughterhouses and whatever. It wasn't meant to be such a populous place, if that makes sense, populous place, such a diverse place. So they said if it was planned properly, they would have all the homes on the outskirts and have everything else in the middle. But they know that they're not going to just kick 5,000 families out of their homes and tear down all their homes and make, things that make more sense, apartment buildings, condos, etc. So unfortunately, we're going to have the lack of inventory there for a long time. So usually I break down Barrie, Simcoe, Innisfil, Springwater, Oro, etc., ESSA. But today I'm just going to do Simcoe as a whole. So in the past 7 days, there were 161 new listings. And of those 161 new listings, 12 of them fell apart. So people offered on them, but they didn't firm up. 69 of them sold conditionally, which you might think only 69 out of 161. That's not very good. And there's 100 extra listings. However, 206 sold firm with no conditions. So there was 275 altogether that sold firm, but there was only 161 new ones. So obviously there was 114 miscellaneous extra ones that had to come out of previous week's inventory, which if you've watched any of these, you know that there isn't really previous week's inventory because always way more sell than come on the market. So hence our lack of inventory. 214 families got keys in the last week, so they had closing dates. Maybe they bought in April or May, etc. 11 people reduced their price, 32 people increased their price, and 7 people suspended their listing, and 35 canceled and relisted. Next question. Next question is from Melissa in Shanty Bay. Our yard is small, but we have 3 kids, and I would ideally love a pool. My husband thinks it'll be weird to have no grass. Who is right? Please pick me. Thank you, Melissa, for asking. So to be honest, we've sold lots of homes where there's no grass, etc., and it's just all pool. Some people will complain, specifically like if they have a dog or something, they're like, where is the dog going to go to the bathroom? I don't want to have to walk them all the time. But I mean, they still sell. And as you know, during COVID, pools are that much more desirable and sought after by people. So they are, definitely up there in the rankings as opposed to what they used to be in the past before COVID. So really, it's just a personal preference. I know that's not really the answer you're looking for. But if you guys think your family will use it, the home will still sell. It's not going to be like, oh, you have to fill it over in 5 years when you sell or whatever. It's still going to sell. So if you guys think you're going to use it, then, all the power to you. I would get the pool. And if you think, hey, we're going to sell next year when my one child's done high school or whatever, and we're probably not going to use it much because the year's almost over and it's not going to go in until next June, and you're not using it, then really, I don't know if pools will be as popular next year. They're obviously super popular right now, but who knows with everybody getting vaccines and so forth, if they'll be as popular next year. And I know obviously the prices are inflated right now. Things that used to cost $30,000 and $40,000 are costing like $100,000 and $120,000 for pools and so forth. So I don't know if that will come down next year. I'd hate for you to pay $100,000 and then you could get it for way cheaper. But thank you for asking. So the next thing is a new grocery store in Vancouver. So obviously we know regular grocery stores. We've all been in them a million times. So there's a new grocery store in Vancouver because 58% of food that's actually made in Canada ends up in waste, which is obviously a lot. So basically they said it's from like canceled orders. It's from like upcoming, best before dates. It's from people ordering the wrong things. It's from people saying, hey, that's not the appearance I want in my restaurant or my store, etc. But 58%. So this one lady in Vancouver said, hey, I'm going to open a grocery store and have only things that, we're going to go to the landfill. Again, they're not gross. They're not like out of a dumpster picking up gross things like that. And they decided to do that. So they're open and they let people come and pay whatever they think is fair or whatever they can afford. So that obviously helps out a lot of families. If we even went like south of, North America and so forth, they have even higher than 58% that goes into their landfills because they don't always have refrigeration depending where they are. And then they obviously have more tropical climates than we do, so they waste even more there. So Vancouver alone, just one city, they get 70,000 pounds of food every single year that's wasted that goes to this grocery or new grocery store, and they get it from wholesalers, they get it from grocery stores, regular traditional grocery stores, as well as from farms. So it's not only like helping people have cheaper bills in their groceries, helping the landfills, but also I didn't know this, that when food is decaying, it creates CO2. And I didn't know that. So anyway, so it's reducing CO2 and emissions and so forth. So it's helping people and helping the environment. So that is neat of that lady out in Vancouver. So the next question comes from Mark in Wasaga Beach. So Mark said, I have a condo in Barrie that I've had for 11 years and it's gone up in value, but not as much as I think a freehold would have. Do you think I should sell it and buy a freehold or keep it and just let it appreciate? Thank you, Mark, for asking. I'm in a condo right now. However, condos, the whole time I've ever been in real estate, they have never gone up as much or more than freehold. So let's just say, back before crazy COVIDness, back before 2017, back before whatever, freeholds were going up, say 10 to 17%. Condos were going up like 2 to 5.5%, right? They were never going up the same as freeholds, as well as then obviously craziness. Then the freeholds are going up 30%, 38%, 27%, whatever. And the condos were going up like 10 to 14. So they've never gone up as much. So you could take it out and put it in a freehold if you can, afford a freehold right now that, makes sense for you to rent and so forth. Or you can just keep it if you like. But obviously the fees and so forth make it seem that you're paying a higher mortgage than you are just because of the fees. But yeah, they've never gone up as long as I've been in real estate. So I don't know about before that, but they have never gone up as much. So if you're looking at complete, ROI and return on your investment, then definitely a freehold would be better for you. So thank you for asking, and hopefully all is well. Next thing is what? It's not all what we see on TV. We know that obviously drama sells, hence why there's what's that, Desperate Housewives in every city or whatever. And drama and so forth sells more than Love and Light, etc. But I like this person that he grew up in a country that is full of turmoil. So himself and his wife, they grew up in Afghanistan. They were born in Afghanistan. And obviously for 40 years, that country has been under a lot of duress and so forth. But instead of just looking at all of that, they've decided that they're going to help. So, how we would say Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or whatever in Canada or the States, brownies, etc. So he started that there in early 2010, and they've helped over 10,000 boys and girls go through the program, and they still run it there today. So they have over 600 team leaders. Those people all volunteer to help these younger kids have a different direction and path. So I like that. So you don't just focus on negative and so forth. You're trying to be positive and do positive. So the next question is from Jackie in Orangeville. So Jackie in Orangeville says, am I allowed to nominate myself for the next mortgage rent payment giveaway? Thank you, Jackie, for asking. You can, to be honest, but in reality, we normally say that to pay it forward and to nominate if you had a friend or somebody at the bank or at your local hair salon, or a family member that's going through something or whatever. It could be for a sad reason or a happy reason. It doesn't have to be a sad story. It could be a happy story. Somebody really helped you through something, or somebody this or somebody that, or somebody's selfless and never thinks of themselves as always just strictly helping the community, etc. Or it could be they went through a hard time, whatever. So we do prefer that if it's somebody else, however, you can nominate yourself, and just make sure you do so before this Friday. So send a video submission like this or a written submission to info@crippshomes.com, and we will knock on somebody's door Friday at 9 a.m. and surprise them with a big check and a little check they can actually take to the bank. But thank you for asking. So there's one thing about making clean air, but also making your home stylish. So there's a man in India, and he created this air purifier. And basically, obviously, one, it makes the air better to breathe, but two, it turns it into, as it's taking stuff out of the air, it turns it into some kind of a particle. And then this particle can be made into flooring as well as into walls. So they're making tiles out of it. They're making concrete type things on the walls and decorative accent and so forth. So he wants to keep it less. Currently, it costs less than a cell phone. He wants to keep it that way because he said, normally people that have poor air quality are in not the most, thriving of countries and often are very poor. So he wants to keep it below the cost of a cell phone so they can afford to have it. And then people in South Korea and Mexico have already bought them off of him. So it's just a prototype. So he's just made it. It's not like official and everything, but they've already said, hey, yeah, we don't care. We want this many of them. So that is neat because it gives people better air to breathe, and then pretty floors. So it's a win-win. Anyways, that basically is it for me. I hope you guys stay tuned on Friday to see the $2,500 winner. Hopefully you stay kind to one another, enjoy the beautiful weather outside, and thank you for popping in.